Hey, everybody, welcome to the podcast. It's September 23rd, and I am going to do something a little different today. I'm going to talk to the white women in the room, but everybody else can listen. I have been thinking a lot about this, and we have a white woman problem. And being a white woman, like an extremely white woman, I'm here to talk about it. And it's important because we are sometimes our own worst enemies, and women know this. We have whole groups about this, whole social constructs for this, how women damage themselves. It's not our fault. I mean, it is our fault. If we know better and we do it, that's our fault. But if we don't know better, then it isn't our fault. And that's why I'm here, right? So I come to you from the toxic soup that was the Golden State Killer, and I've watched women. I happen to have seen women in some of their worst circumstances ever. And I know what I've watched women heal. Me too. My daughter too. Like this, we all live in this weird toxic soup, right? Of people who think we're property, and people who think that we don't have an opinion, and people who think that our uteruses are more important as vessels than as a part of our bodies. Like all this other part doesn't matter, just our uterus, which is a really weird feeling, to have your uterus somehow be more important than anything else. Always grew up thinking like my heart and my lungs were the most important, and then my brain, like all three of those things were pretty necessary. But the deal is that if we don't take responsibility for our own brains and our own behaviors, then we're going to be left with a hot mess. And the thing is, by when we don't take care of those things, we do bad things. We do bad behaviors because we're frustrated and we're not dealing with the problem head on. Instead, we do a lot of passive aggressive stuff. We do a lot of manipulative stuff. We get called horrible things. Women, we're so manipulative. The thing is, I learned a great thing in therapy. Past behaviors that served us as children do not serve us any longer as adults. And I think for a lot of women, what we needed to do to survive our childhoods is very different than who we need to be today. And I'm going to contrast this to Black women because I was thinking, who is it that really, really suffers from the patriarchy? And don't get me wrong, Black women completely suffer from the patriarchy. They do. But I'm just saying, Black women will tell you where to get off. And that's something that we haven't learned. Karen's bitch, but Black women don't bitch. Oh no, they tell you where to step off. And it's a beautiful thing. And I'm so jealous because Black women have an authority and a confidence. Most of them, the ones I'm thinking of, the ones who I've met in my life, have a kind of confidence that I don't know if it's bravado. I don't know if they're faking it till they make it. I don't know where it comes from, but it's killer and it's amazing. And if you think about it, Latina women, Asian women, any European women, we've grown up with patriarchy in a completely different way. And so, and maybe when you're fighting men altogether as being your slave owner, you actually have zero respect. And our problem is we gave men some of our respect. Maybe that's the problem. But we're going to talk about a construct that we use. Not everyone, some of us don't have this way of thinking. Some of us were born at tiny little babies, and at age 3 were already arguing with their father. Can't imagine who that would be other than, of course, me. So some of us don't have it, but my daughter swears it's because I have a neurodivergence that makes me so justice focused that I can't be tricked by this construct. But the thing is, most of us are not tricked by the construct, but actually groomed and raised with the construct. So let's just take it from the top, and I'll get into that. So here's the white woman problem. Let's start with some big, bold truths. Donald Trump has Donald Trump. This Invisalign is killing me, guys. It's killing me. Donald Trump has a serious, these attachments. They catch my tongue every time and they really hurt. They're like little knives on your teeth, but that's what makes the teeth move. So there you go. If you hear me slop in my speech, it's driving me nuts. All right. Donald Trump has a serious woman problem. It's not just his rhetoric caught on tape recently and repeatedly. That's just not his only problem. It's how white women still seem to back him at the ballot box, despite his misogynistic remarks, that's woman-hating remarks, and policies that hurt women. In fact, if you don't know what the word misogyny means, it just means woman hater. It's a great word that's super hard to spell. Trump's pick of JD Vance as his running mate, another white man who made inflammatory comments about women, he doesn't seem to know how to stop, actually, only underscores the challenge the Republican face with female voters. And yet, white women are still voting for these two jagoffs. Okay. However, the twist that needs more attention is that Black women are consistently voting in their best interests. Why? Why are they smarter? Black women have been the backbone of American democracy, standing up for justice, equality, and progress, even when it's been hard. Meanwhile, we see a trend among white women voters who are too often aligning their votes with men who exploit authoritative reasoning, convincing them to accept the status quo, and men who tell them that they know best, that protecting traditional values is in women's interests. But is it? Today, I'm going to dive into why some women, especially white women, fall into this pattern of voting against their own interests, and it's because of something called authoritative reasoning versus my principled reasoning. I will tend to make a decision based on what I think the right thing to do is. Some people tend to make a decision based on what they think the people around them think the right decision is. One's a head, and I refer to it, one's a heart. A heart decider says, I got to read the room. I can see what's going to work best for everybody here. That's the decision I'm going to make. A head decider says, I'm going to look at what's the ultimate perfect thing, the ultimate perfect outcome of justness, not justice, but justness, and I will make that decision. That's two different kinds of reasoning, how you get there. Most of us are a hot mess of both, but those are the two big ones. And today we're talking about authoritative reasoning. So what you need to do is that when you're conditioned, authoritative reasoning really puts you in the position of working against your own interests. And when you are conditioned to defer to authority, so you are conditioned to believe and obey, it is really hard to break free. And this is probably why we're not seeing these white women change very much, because it's hard. And I know, why is it always on us? I don't know. I wish I could solve the riddle of the universe. Why is that women always got to make up the difference? But we do. But I'll tell you what, anybody who's been oppressed, we all got to make up the difference. Every Black person that wakes up every morning in America has got to make up the difference for what happened, the oppression that happened in the past. All the people that had relatives that died in the Holocaust, for which my daughter is one, have to make up that difference. There's just shit that happens. So women always got to make up the difference. But that's okay. We're fucking strong. And I love being a woman. I've never wanted to be a man. I think being a woman is awesome. I think we have superpowers. So sign up. So hang with me. I actually am such an advocate. I freaking love how women can get shit done. All right. So let me explain how authoritative reasoning keeps women in bondage. And I used it. I said it. I said bondage because it's both mental and physical. You can be physically held in captivity, but you can also be mentally held in captivity. And authoritative reasoning is the idea that we need to accept certain beliefs or follow the rules because someone said so. There was, I'm sorry. I hate that sentence. So I'm laughing because it's so amazing how much I hate that sentence. That's how you know I have my neurodivergence about justice, right? Because I am never going to do something because someone said so. I mean, I will now. I've grown up. I'm not just still a 5-year-old, like fighting everything, but it cracks me up because I can't even imagine someone thinking that the reason they're giving me is because someone said so. That just doesn't even ever work. I told you, even Jews, when we believe in God, we have to go question God because I said so is not adequate. That's just not enough. All right, calm down, Jen. All right. So whether it's a boss, a partner, a religious leader, a teacher, even a parent, this type of reasoning asks us to trust authority without question. And while this can sometimes help things run smoothly, sure, military operates on this principle. Absolutely. There are times when authority is absolutely necessary, but you agree to that. You sign up for it. It's not that you were born into it. You agreed to go sign up for that kind of situation. It has a serious downside. This kind of authoritative reasoning has a real downside because you don't question, then that also means others aren't questioning. In fact, the whole notion of being authoritative is that you do not want people questioning you. You're supposed to know better, which I think that's the underlying assumption that's flawed. Why would you think that the person in power knows better? You need to make sure that you know that the person in power knows better if you're ceding your own power. For those who believe in authoritative reasoning, it can feel safe and uncomplicated, right? If you want to be, was so close to using some really bad language. I don't want to put women down, but if you do want to be a bimbo, you can be a bimbo. You're going to get told what to do, and your life's going to be that of a bimbo. Not going to have a lot of control. You're going to think you are, but I bet you do some of the things I'm going to tell you that you do. I bet you do some of the non-productive ways to fight the power if you're dealing with authoritarianism. And I'm going to tell you what it does to us, what we end up doing to fight this in unhealthy ways. So it's some women like it when you don't have to make hard decisions because someone else does it for you. But your husband might invest all your money in Trump crypto, and you might be broke in your retirement. Your husband might invest all your money in Trump tennis shoes or coins. All of them have lost money. Truth Social, in the toilet on the stock exchange today. This is where when you cede your power and you trust authority, you're trusting that authority to make all the decisions for you. And while it might feel easy and like, totally don't have to think about it because he does, you're an idiot. You do have to think about it because you know what? When your husband dies, you don't know where your shit is. Or I don't know, maybe he has sex with a woman outside of marriage and has a whole other child and put in his will. He's going to leave everything to the other child, which by the way is appropriate, but not everything, but it is appropriate for him to take care of his other child, but you didn't know about it. This is the problem with the authoritative reasoning, is that when you give up your power, you literally give up. So you need to think critically and independently. And I'm sorry it's hard, and I'm sorry it's uncomfortable, but it's pretty fun. It is very, very fun. And you'll start to feel really good about yourself if you do this. So here you go. Instead of agreeing to things that you don't feel are right because someone told you to do so, you need to understand that that authority figure, at the same time you're following their authority, it's messing up their brain. It means they're no longer thinking about you. They may have started that way. They might have started very much considering decisions that had you included. But the more you cede your power and give it up to the other person, whether it's a man in a relationship, a leader in a church, your boss at work, this reasoning starts to give them more control. You actually elevate them even more. And that means they start setting rules and controlling the narrative and expecting you to fall in line. It's a trap for them too, because they start to become dependent on the power and they feel threatened when it's challenged. And this may be even an uglier outcome for you if you allowed somebody in your life to have all the power and you start to fight that. And with that, I'm going to take a quick see me over at camera number, whatever, as John Stewart says. Ladies, particularly ladies, but also men in relationships with other men who are terrifying. I want you to really be careful. And I'm going to do just a brief commercial. It's really important. Look, I didn't even put up like all my slides. I'm so bad at this. I want you to, I'm going to go to the slide. I want you to be really safe when you're challenging authority. It's very possible that in the process of you, even in a baby step, starting to stand up for yourself, you could trigger someone, especially if they've had all the power for a long time. So I'm not saying this flippantly. I'm being really serious. I want you to really, really be careful as you take these steps. Maybe exercise some of your changes in other areas where the authority figure is not around you so much. Start to practice with your skills. You don't have to do this in an unsafe setting. You can do it with other women. You can do it in a classroom. You can do it with kids. You can do it all kinds of places. But I don't want you to put yourself at risk, okay? So that's just a really important thing. Whenever someone challenges, especially an authoritative model, because it's about blind obedience and it's about doing what you're told, whenever that happens, you really are at risk of getting hurt. And so just please be careful. All right, let's get into this. Let's talk about the unhealthy ways just sorry, I got a better slide. Sorry. Authoritative reasoning affects women at home. Sorry, I'm going to do this one first because I wanted you to kind of understand what happens and some of the tools that are used to isolate you and to help authoritative person feed your brain an authoritative model. Some ways they might manipulate you or work to control you that you may not have thought about. So men use authoritative reasoning to control women in their relationships. That's often That's very common. The church supports it. Go look at my why Trump hates women blog content. It's all about how the church sets it up so that women are basically property. And we're not property. We're fully formed. I'm fully formed, whole life, living, breathing, thinking human who can be feisty, annoying, and delightful. Yes, I have all of those things. So what you need to worry about as you're starting to look at this authoritative reasoning, you need to be careful because you might find yourself silencing your own needs because you want to avoid conflict or punishment. So remember, we just said that people who have the power start to get off on it and they start to escalate. They start to feel like they become more empowered. It's kind of that awful thing of like giving someone in power more power, and they become kind of crazy, kind of drunk on the power. So this kind of power differential in particular can lead to emotional, verbal, and even physical abuse. And domestic violence often starts when this controlling behavior begins, making it harder for women to escape once things start to escalate. I worry about this all the time, women. I don't know how you guys do it, but when I don't have a man in my house, partly because when I grew up, there was a man in my house and I wasn't safe. So it was really important to me while I was raising my daughter, there weren't going to be men in my house. I made sure she had men everywhere else, but in the house, this needed to be a safe place. It just needed to be a safe place. Some wingnets as a result. There are some common ways people in authority use power to enforce their power. So they use their power to get more power and to enforce their power, right? Anyone who's been in a psychopathic relationship knows this. These behaviors are common tactics to control women under the guise of authoritative reasoning. So let me see if these ring true for you because these are important. One of the first ways that a power-hungry person who wants to have power over you, and if you are an authoritative reasoner, you will let them isolate you. Isolation means you don't have girlfriends. You don't have a place to go. You don't have resources. Isolation cuts you off from friends, family, or support networks. And others, and your authoritative person is going to say they're a bad influence. They're bad. Don't hear that, Jennifer Carroll. She's a bad. Oh, I've had people say that so many times in my life. I am a bad influence. So I will teach you how to be free and how to think like a smart cookie. That is my job. So anyway, don't listen to Jennifer Carroll. She's a bad influence. I have instigator on my license plate. That's how much I signed up to bad influence. Over time, isolation leaves you with fewer people to turn to, making it harder to recognize the abuse or seek help. You don't even have a way to check norms, right? You can't even see what's happening to you seems excessive because you've been cut off from a social network. And possibly in the church, in a white Christian evangelical church, if you question it, you're going to go to other women who have been told to tell you to shut up and sit down. So you're actually going to go with other women that are suffering from the same kind of abuse. So isolation is huge. You become entirely dependent on them for emotional support, validation, finances, economic support, everything, social interaction. You are 100% their emotional and psychological slave. Another form of psychological manipulation that's used in this stage of authoritarianism is gaslighting. So authoritarian reasoning is based on you believing what the authority tells you. But if you start to question, they might start to lie to you. They'll tell you you're remembering it wrong, or you're overreacting, or that's not what happened. No one else would think that. They do it, they make you question yourself. And women have a capacity for questioning ourselves. Like it's actually a good trait. We actually are able to look inward pretty effectively. It's something that if we were raised in any kind of a healthy environment, it's a really great skill. It goes with empathy, right? You'd be able to tune in. But if they're gaslighting you, if you're being gaslit, if someone's telling you things that aren't true, trying to make you feel like you're crazy, you're going to be in a world of hurt, especially if they've already isolated you. And then, of course, we have where authoritative reasoning ends up with the punishment cycle that if you don't behave, it often results in domestic or sexual violence. It can start really subtly, where you don't really know it, but the controlling behavior escalates over time, and the abuse becomes for your own good, right? You made them do it because you didn't listen. I didn't trigger anyone on that, but God, that's it. You didn't listen. I'm sorry, it sounds like that. Oh, boy, just pulled one from my childhood memories, but that you didn't listen thing, like that's your fault. And somehow it's made hugely your fault. And so they're going to hit you. They're going to rape you. They're going to do something to you to get you to listen and to behave for your own good. Okay, that's the dark side of what happens if you choose to not stand up for yourself and not use your own brain. If you only use authority as your way to get through the world, if you just trust authority, I got news for you. It doesn't end well. It just doesn't end well. Okay, so how does authoritative reasoning work for women in society? Well, guess what? On a macro level, it's used by institutions like churches, schools, law enforcement, and government, and it tells us that we need to trust a leader because they're in charge, not because they have good thoughts, because they're in charge. The inference is that they got to be in charge because they're smart. But we've been watching men fail up for decades. We've been watching sexual molesters fail up for decades. We've been watching cops fail up for decades, and judges and Congress people. For God's sakes, folks, these people are not they're not in power because they were the smartest person. Rarely is the smartest person in power. Don't tell Elon Musk, it's going to upset him. Okay, so these systems often reinforce one another. What I just spit out a list of men in power and how they're not necessarily the best or the brightest, but you're supposed to listen to them. And that's where I'm calling bullshit. Enough is enough. Women, stop it. Stop listening to these men who are in power but do not have the qualifications to be there. Much like Trump, to be perfectly honest, much like that JD Vance. Sorry, that was me wanting to say bad words, but I'm just not going to say bad words about JD Vance because he's not worth it. He is so unqualified, it hurts. So we have two men right now with no qualifications who pretend to have the authority to tell us what to do. It's just a perfect example. So the problem is, if we believe in this kind of authority, and if you believe obedience is your mission in life, I got news for you. That's not going to get you far, and it's going to kill your daughters. We are in a cycle where we're passing this down to our children. We have been groomed to be this way. Girls are told to sit up and be quiet. Cross your legs at the ankle. Don't speak up. Don't challenge your elders. Don't contradict. All those terrible things. I'm going to tell you, yes, be a sassy woman. Yes, you're so smart. Women are intuitive. They're smart. You trust your damn judgment. And it's not the judgment you have because somebody told you what to think. It's the facts you went and covered yourself. So guess what happens when we act out? Because women are taught that they can't have power through the front door, right? We got to have power through the back door. And so unfortunately, one of the things that happens is that instead of challenging the power head on, because that's hard, I'm going to give you that. It's hard. It's me. I had another lawsuit. I'm trying to sue these rat bastards that treated me so badly in the Valley. The MFers closed the business. I can't sue them. I'm so angry because they treated me so badly. And, but I went through the front door. I freaking went through the front door. And you know what? I feel really good that I did. I know Olivia Benson says this all the time, but there is something about the standing up for yourself that is incredibly powerful. We might get bruised and hurt along the way. God knows I have had many crying jags over this lawsuit. Many, because it was so cool what they did. It was just so unbelievably cool and so personal, you know? But the thing is, I really do feel badass for fighting. I feel really good about that. And the lawyers, you know, they were very supportive. Fantastic. Cannot ever need a law firm for any kind of sexual harassment situation. Let me know. Got a great firm here in San Jose. But I'm telling you, standing up for yourself, yeah, you get knocked around. You do. But it's a lot better than getting knocked around from being quiet. I love getting knocked around for standing up for myself. That feels so legit. And Olivia's right. It's worth it. It's truly worth it. And I've had to stand up for myself from the first minute. Well, I didn't really stand up for myself. I was saying from the first minute my dad was murdered, I had to stand up for myself. The problem is I had so much self-confidence that it wasn't that hard for me to stand up for myself. But I'd already by that time been a student leader for years, so I did have a lot of confidence. Like that's an unusual to have. Anyway, this is not about me. Here's what women do when they can't get out. They do the things that then men go, oh, women are just this and women are just that. Women are, because we do these bad things to fight authority. We lie. Lying may feel like a small rebellion, but dishonesty usually increases your anxiety, your guilt, and your feelings of powerlessness, deepening the dependence on the system that you're trying to escape. So let me tell you, there's 3 studies that were done about women and lying. And I just think it's interesting where these studies went because, well, first of all, I love scientific research. It's fun. And I especially like behavioral. I like the social sciences a ton. Shocking, I know. But women who lie to cover up actions like hiding finances from controlling partners often find that dishonesty exacerbates the trust issues and it leads to more control or punishment. So don't lie to your husband about the money. If you're in charge of the money, be truthful, engage him, work on it like partners. Lying in the workplace to avoid confrontation with the boss might seem like a quick fix, but this study showed dishonesty can lead to long-term career setbacks and increased anxiety. So once we start down the path of lying, it takes a toll on us and our health and our sanity. We need to see ourselves not as liars. So don't lie. Studies on emotional labor show that lying to maintain emotional harmony in toxic relationships only deepens dependency and reduces your self-worth. So if you're lying to try to save the marriage, you're killing yourself. And there's one woman on Twitter who I'm watching because she just realized that she was living with a man. She realized it wasn't working. It was just dragging her down. And she is so happy to be in that house by herself now. It's not the house she wanted. It's not, none of this is what she wanted. This wasn't her dream. And yet her independence and her happiness are soaring. So you need to figure out for yourself, what is that? Women can be aggressive. Aggression might feel powerful at the moment, but it backfires often and entrenches the power of the person you're rebelling against. So 3 studies. Women who resort to physical aggression, such as lashing out at controlling partners, are more likely to experience escalated violence in return. So let's just really clear. You hit him, he's going to hit you back. Not always, but sometimes. I remember one time my dad called me up to break up a fight between he and my stepmother, and I didn't know they fought physically. Like, that was new to me. But my dad was on the front lawn, and this is the most, I talk about this, is the most badass thing I have ever seen anyone do. It was my stepmother. She came out from the kitchen and she had the silverware tray. You know, the one where you put the knives in one bowl, one thing, and the forks in the other, and the spoons, the silverware sorter, the thing you put in the drawer. She had pulled that out of the drawer and she took it and she flipped it like a weapon where all the silverware went shooting out at my dad across the lawn. She did it out the front door onto the front lawn where he was. Like, silverware just went at him like shot from a shotgun. Badass, I'm telling you. But interestingly enough, in that circumstance, my dad did not escalate because my dad was a lawyer and he knew absolutely positively he would be in big trouble professionally if he crossed the line. But my stepmother had no compunction. Holy crap. I still remember that. That's like your secret weapon in your house is your silverware sorter. I didn't know. Shotgun blast, I'm telling you. Okay, so aggressive behavior in the workplace, like shouting at superiors or colleagues, can feel like you're taking control, but it will alienate you and you will have career. Your career will not advance. It will limit your ability to advance in your career. And finally, acts of aggression during political protests, like clashing with law enforcement, can overshadow the cause and reduce public sympathy, leading to harsher crackdowns on rights. So this is, of course, we see this a lot where that's more of a general protest, but the idea is anytime you go nuts, people are less likely to listen to you. That's hard because authoritative situation, it's easy to make you look nuts. Remember, see gaslighting above and isolation. Really easy to make you look nuts. That's why I'm going to tell you one of the healthy ways to deal with this is to find some friends. The last thing, of course, is acting out sexually. Oh, that's not that's not the last thing. Acting out sexually is common because it's a way for a woman to really feel her power and rebel against the control. So if I'm controlled in other areas of life, I can still control my own body, right? That's the one thing we have left. We can control our own body. Well, until the Supreme Court got to it, and we can't even control that anymore. But you take my meaning. Women may engage in affairs or impulsive sexual encounters to feel like they're in control of their body, but this usually results in emotional turmoil and consequences that are fueled by anger or desire for revenge. So you got to be careful because unintended consequences are a big part of acting out sexually. There's the unintended consequence of violence, of STIs, of you hurting yourself or getting hurt. and potentially bringing harm to your children if you're doing things that if you're acting out sexually in a way that's dangerous. So think those things through. Participating in risky sexual behaviors such as unprotected sex can lead to unwanted consequences like STIs, pregnancies, which you cannot get aborted now, or other emotional fallout. And in situations of domestic violence, some women use sex to manipulate or appease their abuser, believing it gives you a form of control. But the deal is that usually escalates the abuse and leaves you feeling even more trapped. I don't want you to try to do all these things on your own, and I don't want you acting out in these bad ways. The last thing is that some people break the law. Women, y'all break the law, but you know what you do? You do some really crazy things. So you might engage in reckless driving, speeding as a form of rebellion against controlling partners or authority figures that face harsher legal consequences. And so you're going to get the speeding ticket, but it might give you a real sense of power to be able to speed, right? Because you're doing the thing you're told not to do. In fact, look for anything you're doing that you're told not to do in an unhealthy way. So if you're doing a bad behavior like speeding, breaking laws, maybe some women who turn to theft as a form of protest against economic inequality, and they can get caught in cycles of criminal behavior. Don't show your authoritative person that you know how to steal. That's not going to go well for you, and it affects your personal brand. Your personal brand, who you are as a person. Personal brand matters. I don't want you to be a criminal. I don't want you to be a thief. I don't want you to have an arrest record. I don't want you to have any of those things, because you are worth more than that. You are worth a ton. You are worth so much to the people who love you. So you finding your own sense of self and standing up for yourself is really important. So let me shift the energy here a little bit. What can you do to fight the power in a healthy way? And again, I'm going to tell you, I want you to pace yourself. I want you to dip your toe in the water. I want you to know your vote is absolutely positively private, and you can talk about and kiss Trump's ass and sing his praises as much as you want, and go into that booth and vote for yourself. Vote for Kamala, vote for your health, vote for your safety, vote against racism, vote against authoritarianism, vote against evil and anger and meanness and hate. You can do all of that, and nobody has to know. Your vote is private. So first of all, I want you to educate yourself. Breaking free is going to be hard, but we're going to start small. I want you to find out how authority works and when it's abusive. And I want you to just maybe I don't know if you should write it down, maybe in your phone, wherever you're safe, where you could write something about. Maybe just keep a little note where things feel like you're actually giving up a piece of your soul. Start to keep track of when you're giving up part of who you are. You might not even remember. It might be hard to find that person. So you're going to need to think about it. You're going to need to sit with it. And you're going to probably need to be quiet. Good time in the car. Put this back on and think about who you are in the car. What do you stand for? What is your personal brand? And if it's about being a good woman, I want you to write down what the characteristics are. And obedience should not be one of them. I don't think God asks you to be obedient. I think God asks you to serve. That's really important. There's so much right now about God and obedience. There's no God that I know that require us to conform. God actually asks you to make things better, to serve, to show up, to bring your true brand to life, bring your whole beauty that is you. If God made you and you're a beautiful thing, and I believe I am who I am, flaws and all, fat ass, funny mouth, wild hair, that's me. I'm all those things, and I love it. I want to have that for you. So educate yourself. In the blog, there's studies about what educating does, but it can make it just the very act of starting to read new content can start to change your mind. Next, question small things. That's what I said. Keep a little journal. Start to keep track of those things that don't feel true to you or that you miss about yourself. They've always kind of thought was rather adorable about you. And start to write those down. I want you to know what those are, because I want you to feel good enough to vote for yourself. I want you to become your own advocate. I want you to become your own best friend. I want you to become your own marketing manager for the you brand. It sounds so freaking hokey, but Take it in, please. I want you to breathe this in because it's different than maybe you've ever thought about. I've benefited from being in California. I've benefited from going to school for half my life. I want to share this with you because it's really awesome to be a smart, intelligent woman in the world with agency. And all of this you can do. I know you can. And if you can't, we help each other. That's how it works. All right. I want you to find supportive communities. So this could be anything. It could be Alcoholics Anonymous. It could be a church group, but maybe look at a church. Try this. Maybe try to go to a church group that's different than your church. That's how I ended up Jewish. I started going to temple. I freaking loved it. So here's the thing. You can make choices. You don't have to tell anybody what you're doing either. You can do this for yourself. Just go to a different kind of Bible study. Go to a different kind of women's group. Go to a networking group where they're all business women. Maybe that's something you're not. Or if you are a businesswoman, get the heck out there. Go to one of those networking groups. They're fun. You share contacts, you share insights, you share business tricks. It's a great thing. So all of those things are available. And of course, the last thing is that, and you're going to have to do this in a way that's not going to trigger anybody because I want you to be safe, but start to figure out where your boundaries are. What is the bridge too far? If you haven't read about boundaries, if you haven't been to therapy, because everybody in the 90s went to therapy, we all learned about boundaries. This was like a thing, right? But if you're too young to have learned about boundaries, although my daughter, who is Gen Z, talks about it pretty often, seems like boundaries is a big thing in this generation, and I'm glad. But if you haven't really looked into boundaries is basically where you begin and or where you end and somebody else begins. So knowing your boundaries is important. Like, I have a boundary. I'm not eating mushrooms. That's a weird boundary. One of my boundaries is that I won't wander into, well, this is bad because I don't live my boundaries. I have boundaries all over the place, but the thing is, I don't have to act on them. I can't write a lot of examples for myself, but a boundary is a line that you don't want to cross anymore. And also a boundary is when you find out that something that you're dealing with doesn't belong to you. So if your husband comes in from a bad day, throws his crap all over the house, shits on you with his shitty attitude, there's your boundary right there. It's not your job to be shot upon by the unhappy person. Yeah, you could reframe the whole situation and go, hey, honey, you came up home upset. Maybe when that happens, we should go for a walk, or you should go for a walk. Or maybe that's a good time to take out all the trash just to get physical for a minute. Like you might deal with a 5-year-old. Up to you, but you need to figure out where your boundaries are and know that when somebody else is making you part of the problem and it's not yours, that you can set up that boundary too. It doesn't necessarily have to be like you're putting your hands up, but you need to be really clear in your mind what your boundaries are. So I know that I'm making all of this sound really simple, oversimplified. I don't mean that. I have mass respect for everybody's individual journey because I know some of these journeys are really, really tough. That I've been through things that I didn't think I was going to get through, that I certainly didn't ever expect to be in. So that is the diorama, the diorama that is our life, right? The weird shit that happens to us along the way. But I care about you. I care about opening your mind and changing some of those deeply ingrained behaviors. I care about you breaking free from someone else's control. I care about you unlearning years of being told that you don't matter, your voice doesn't matter, not to trust your instincts. How is it that men tell women not to trust their instincts? For crap's sake, that's a gift from God. That intuition is powerful. And if you've been traumatized, it's actually probably overworked because our empathy goes off the charts. I'm just saying you deserve to have as much control as you can of your life, and you should be trusting your instincts. And the change doesn't have to happen all at once. You don't have to be perfect or fearless to start this. You just start by finding you and starting to assert yourself. It's important to remember you're not alone. Even if you just keep listening to my podcast, sometimes my podcasts are boring. Sometimes they're great, whatever. They might resonate for you. Other times you might be like, whatever, Jen, having a day. It's fine. That's why we're having conversations. And I think I'm committed to doing this after the election because what I realize is I really care about women, like a lot. And I want women to feel as comfortable in their skin as I do, even with all my flaws. So I want to be here for you. And I talk to people on Twitter all the time. I'll talk with you. If you have a question, fine. If you want to comment, fine. This is great. But my point is, change is hard, but staying stuck is harder. You have the power to break free. You have to rewrite the rules that no longer serve you. Got it? You are probably doing things today that you used to do to save your own ass. But they're no longer necessary. You don't have to be that afraid young woman, that afraid girl, that person anymore. You can be a badass. And you have the power to rewrite the rules, to build a future where your voice is heard and be valued. And I want you to start today. And this election has become a pivot point of talking about women and what we're doing to ourselves and white women. You are the problem, but I'm here to help. I want you to join me. Build your own brand. Start fighting for yourself. Move from authoritative to principled reasoning and take a look through a whole new lens. Thank you for listening.